Have you ever heard strange sounds hidden within the rain? The wind howling outside the window, the steady drip of water down the hallway, and then suddenly, a sound out of place, a sound unlike anything you've ever known. On rainy nights like these, the darkness feels colder, heavier, and sometimes you can't shake the feeling that you are not truly alone. Now, join me as we listen to 3 haunting stories on rainy nights. That night, the rain was relentless. I still remember the sound of it hammering against the tall windows of St. Clare Hospital. Steady, heavy, like thousands of fingers drumming in unison. Water streaks slid down the glass, blurring the faint yellow glow of the street lamps outside, casting the whole room in a hazy, suffocating light. I had been hired to care for Mrs. Aldridge, an elderly widow recovering after surgery. It was my first time staying overnight in a hospital. From the very beginning, I felt uneasy. The air was thick with disinfectant, sharp and bitter, laced with the musty dampness that seemed baked into the old walls. The fluorescent light above buzzed constantly, pale and cold, washing her tired face in a ghostly hue. I sat curled up on a wooden chair beside her bed. Outside, the rain went on without pause. The hallways were silent, so silent that I could make out the faint dripping of water from a broken pipe somewhere far away. And then, I heard it. At first, I thought it was just the wind pressing through a crack in the window. But when I focused, I realized it sounded like a moan, very faint, barely more than a breath slipping out of someone in pain. It came in fragments, weak and distant, like it was drifting on the rain itself. My heart thudded. I straightened up, straining to listen. But the sound faded, leaving only the endless patter of water. I told myself I was overtired, hearing things. An hour later, while Mrs. Aldridge was still asleep, the moaning came again, louder this time, staggered, as if someone nearby was stifling their sobs. I jolted upright, because it sounded like it was coming from right behind my chair. My head whipped around, but there was nothing. Only the white curtain swaying ever so slightly, like something unseen had brushed past it. I swallowed hard, gripping the edge of the blanket. The air felt colder, as though the dampness from outside had seeped directly into the room. I waited, motionless, every muscle tight. But just like before, the sound vanished into silence. The third time came just before dawn. By then I was exhausted, my eyes burning, my thoughts foggy. And that was when I heard it, this time, from under the bed. The moan was trembling, broken, so close it felt as though someone was lying right beneath me, unseen, whispering in agony. My stomach dropped. I leaned down, trembling, and looked. Darkness. Only thick, empty shadows beneath the frame of the bed. But the smell of dampness hit me, stale and suffocating. My heart pounded like it wanted to tear through my chest. I couldn't stand it anymore. I shook Mrs. Aldridge's arm. Did you hear that? She opened her eyes, weary, her voice raspy. Probably just someone snoring. This is a hospital. Don't pay it any mind. She closed her eyes again, but I knew. In that brief moment, her expression betrayed something else. That night, I never slept. Every beat of the rain, every distant drip in the hallway made me flinch. Terrified, the sound would return again. A few days later, when Mrs. Aldridge was discharged, the sky was still gray, rain still falling like it hadn't stopped at all. In the car, she stared out at the blurred glass, and then she said softly, Maria? I've heard it too, not just once, many nights. I froze. I knew it, I heard it too. Every night I was terrified. I just didn't dare say it. She turned to me then. Her eyes were tired, but warm, as if we now shared a secret. She let out a quiet laugh. Not polite, but familiar, almost playful. If you had told me back then, I think I would have begged you not to leave me. I was afraid you'd run and abandon me here all alone. Despite the chill still crawling on my skin, I laughed too. And you think I'd really leave you? If I ran, who would sit here and listen to the rain with you? For a moment we were both silent. Only the rain pounding steadily on the roof of the car, heavy like a heartbeat. Then Mrs. Aldridge turned back to the window, her voice dropping into a whisper, almost a warning. But Maria, remember this. It's a hospital. And there are things we are better off not trying to find. The rain continued, endless and unbroken, as if carrying her words long after they were spoken. I rented a small apartment on the outskirts of Manchester, in an old 3-story building. My room was on the top floor, at the corner, with a large window facing a narrow alley. From the very first day I stepped in, I could smell the dampness clinging to the air. It seeped into the stained walls, lingered in the sheets, and left a bitter taste at the back of my throat. On my first night there, the rain fell hard. Rain in Manchester is common, but rarely that heavy, pounding so fiercely the roof seemed to tremble. I pulled the latch on the window. The wooden frame groaned with a dry, screeching creak. When I turned off the lamp, the room sank into a thick grayness, filled only with the relentless hammering of rain, steady, like one endless sigh. I lay on my side, the bed pressed right against the window. The mattress was thin, the springs whining each time I moved. I tried to drift off to sleep, but then I heard something else hidden inside the rain. At first, it was faint. Rustle, rustle. A strange sound, like someone crumpling a paper bag. I sat up, heart thudding, ears straining. But the moment I focused, it stopped. Only the rain remained. I told myself I was tired, imagining things. A while later, it returned. Rustle, rustle, rustle. Louder this time, with rhythm, as if a hand was carefully crushing and releasing something over and over again. I stepped toward the window, pressed my palm against the cold glass. Instantly, the sound disappeared. I backed away, and as soon as I lay down again, it came back. Rustle, rustle. This time followed by a faint dragging sound across the window pane, like something wet being pulled along the glass. My skin prickled. The sensation was undeniable. Someone out there was deliberately mocking me. That night, I couldn't sleep. I pulled the blanket over my head, but the sound refused to leave. It started, stopped, then returned exactly when I exhaled, as if it knew what I was doing. When I listened, it went silent. When I ignored it, it came back. A cruel game, patient and persistent. Once, I swear I heard it right beside my pillow. A single rustle, soft but close enough to make me bolt upright, sweat chilling my back. I lay frozen, too afraid to move until morning. At dawn, I went to check. The window was clouded with condensation. On the glass were handprints, many small handprints, overlapping, pressed from the outside. And on the rotten wooden sill clung a wet, crumpled plastic bag, its edge trembling in the wind. I stood there paralyzed, unable to touch it. The next night, no rain, no wind. The apartment was so quiet I could hear the ticking of the wall clock. I almost convinced myself it was over. I read a book, drank a cup of hot tea, and felt a rare sense of peace. But close to midnight, a sudden storm rolled in. Heavy raindrops pounded the window, streaking it with crooked lines. I froze, and then, rustle, rustle. The sound returned, clearer, harsher, as if the rain itself had awakened it. I sat still, my heartbeat racing. When I focused, it stopped. When I turned away, it began again. Over and over, a mocking rhythm. I realized it wouldn't stop unless I acknowledged it. So, I lay down, faced the window, and whispered, "All right, I hear you. Now leave me be immediately." The room fell into perfect silence. The rain continued, but the rustling was gone, completely. I closed my eyes. My breathing slowed. For the first time in nights, I felt true peace. I drifted into sleep, deep, heavy. And when I woke the next morning, everything was normal. The window was dry, no handprints, no plastic bag, as if none of it had ever happened. I was renting a small house in the outskirts of York with Daniel, a colleague and friend. The house was old, 2 stories high, with a narrow wooden porch at the front. It was late autumn, and the rain seemed endless, falling almost every night. That night, close to midnight, I went downstairs to the living room to get some water. As I passed by the window, I froze. Out on the porch, there was a figure, tall, thin, motionless, leaning ever so slightly toward the front door, as if it were watching the house. Its shape was blurred in the downpour, half dissolved by the rain. My chest tightened, my heartbeat hammering so hard I could hear it inside my head. My throat was dry. Swallowing hurt. I stepped back, my bare feet pressing against the cold floorboards. Damp air seeped through the gaps of the door and brushed against my skin like an icy hand. I took a long, shaky breath, then rushed upstairs to wake Daniel. "Daniel, wake up. There's someone out front." He groaned, annoyed at being disturbed, but followed me down. I pointed toward the porch, my hand trembling. "There. Right there, do you see it?" Daniel pressed his face against the glass, squinting for a long moment, then shook his head. "There's no one there." "You're exhausted." I looked again, and to my confusion, the porch was empty, only rain pounding the steps. The next night, it rained even harder. We were both in the living room, the TV murmuring in the background while rain drowned out almost everything. Near midnight, I glanced out the window, and the figure was there again. Tall, still, leaning toward the door. My chest seized up. "Daniel! Look! Tell me you see it this time." Daniel turned his head. He fell silent for several seconds, his face stiffening. Finally, he whispered, his voice trembling. "Yes, I see it." My stomach dropped. I gripped the armrest of the chair, my fingers numb with cold. Together, we stared out into the rain. The figure didn't move. The porch glistened wet under the dim yellow glow of the street lamp. Then lightning flashed, flooding everything in a harsh white light. And in that split second, the porch was empty. When darkness fell back, the figure was gone. Neither of us spoke. I could hear Daniel's breathing, ragged and uneven, just like mine. Around 3 a.m, I woke again. Rain still battered the roof in heavy sheets. I went down for water, and as I stepped into the living room, my blood ran cold. The figure was back, closer than ever. It stood right at the edge of the porch, only a few steps from the front door. Tall, thin, motionless. The streetlight behind it cast a long shadow that stretched across the wet porch floor. I stopped a few feet from the door. My heart slammed wildly, sweat breaking out cold across my neck. My hand rose toward the latch, trembling so badly I couldn't grip it. I felt each pulse in my temples, each breath rasping dry in my throat. The damp air pushed through the gap under the door, brushing against my ankles. I shivered violently. I knew. If I pulled the latch, if I opened that door, something irreversible would happen. I snatched my hand back, stumbling as I ran upstairs, my heart pounding so loud, it felt like the whole house could hear it. The next morning, the porch was perfectly dry. No footprints, no signs that anyone had ever stood there. When I looked at Daniel, he quickly turned his eyes away. Neither of us mentioned what had happened. But ever since, whenever it rains, we both draw the curtains tight. Because we know the tall, still figure could return to the porch at any time. And maybe it's still waiting for someone to open the door.